First, let me introduce the speaker sponsor, St. Alphonsus, and representing St. Al's, Phil Harrop. Thank you, Phil. I probably pronounced your name wrong all year, didn't I? And you were so kind. You never said a word. Phil is the Executive Director of Operations at St. Al's. He's also on our board. He's just won the Dessert Award. Man, you're an awesome guy. You know?
Thanks,
you got it all together.
Thanks.
Thanks, pal.
I'm not so sure about that. My wife is here, and she might describe me a little bit differently. Before I introduce our speaker, though, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate your support of the Chamber. My wife and I moved here 3 years ago from Ohio. This is a great place to live and to work, to raise a family. And we love being here. So thanks for what you all do to make this such a great place to not only do business, but to work, to live, to go to school, and to raise kids. And I think Dan might agree, Nampa's a pretty good place to grow up. So with that, Dan Price founded Gravity Payments from his dorm room after witnessing thousands of hardworking small business owners being overcharged and underserved by their credit card processors. Dan built his company on values of honesty and transparency instilled upon him while growing up in rural Nampa. He didn't want to confuse business owners with industry jargon or hide fees in the fine print. Instead, Gravity employs honesty, transparency, and doing business with integrity. These simple values have set Dan and his company apart from many other processors, making Gravity the most trusted name in the payments industry. Today, over 12,000 independent businesses across all 50 states trust Gravity to save them millions in fees and hours in frustration by making it easy and simple for them to accept payments. Dan's recent decision to raise his company's minimum salary to $70,000 has captured headlines around the world. Incidentally, it was a month ago tonight that I saw that story on Fox News. It's pretty late in the evening, and that was remarkable to see all the attention after that. His leadership and entrepreneurship have earned him many awards, notably Entrepreneur Magazine's Entrepreneur of 2014, the 2014 Seattle Business Executive Excellence Award, the 2013 GeekWire's Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award, and the 2010 SBA National Young Entrepreneur of the Year awarded to him by President Obama. With that, we welcome and are pleased to have Dan Price. Take it away.
Am I good? Everyone can hear me? Cool. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I actually grew up a little bit south of Nampa. We are addressed to Nampa, and we were very involved in the Nampa community. I went to Nampa Christian High School. So I thought I'd just maybe share a little bit about my story with everybody. Again, I feel really privileged to be here. You know, this is a great event. And then from there, I was hoping we could do a little bit of Q&A. That's my favorite part of all this stuff all the time, so I'm hoping to get to your guys' questions and we can create a little bit more of a dialogue. So I was actually born in Michigan, and my dad and mom are here in the audience. I really appreciate you guys and love you guys. I was the fourth of 6 kids, and I have 3 older brothers. And I was actually born just off the campus of Michigan State University in the same hospital as my dad and my grandfather. And my older brothers were pretty nice to me most of the time, but sometimes they weren't so nice to me. So I decided, as a kid in Michigan, that we were right on Michigan State Spartan campus, right? And I decided I was going to be a Michigan Wolverines fan. So I've always had a little bit of an independent streak, and always kind of wanted to do that. So when I was 5 years old, we actually moved here, and my dad got a job working for AIM. And it was exciting times. We got to go out and have all this, great open Idaho kind of experience. We were out in the country. And I remember I used to go on walks out in the country. And one time, after like a 6 or 7 hour walk, I got home and I was in trouble because my parents couldn't find me. My family couldn't find me. They thought I was lost. They thought I was in trouble. But what they didn't realize was I actually had done that like probably about 100 times. It was just the first time that I got caught. And so growing up in Idaho, it's such a privilege to grow up here. And it's such a great place. And after that, my mom homeschooled me. And, my dad... my parents, they have 6 kids, right? And it's pretty hard to raise 6 kids. There's a lot of work involved. And my dad was working so hard. He was such a great example for me. And my mom, she works so hard all the time to educate us. And my mom is so passionate about education. She's so passionate about independent thinking. So she decided she wanted to homeschool us, at least until junior high, and give us some of that same independent streak. And it was just like, again, it was such a privilege being out there. And it was so fun. And so finally, actually, when I was in 7th grade, I convinced my mom and my dad to let me go to school. And I started at Nampa Christian High School. And it was pretty funny because being homeschooled, I was actually always the coolest kid in my class. And my mom told me that, so I was like... So I thought I'd go to class, and at Nampa Christian, I thought I'd be, really popular and have all these social skills. It was actually really difficult to adjust. How many people here maybe have friends or family or relatives that are homeschoolers? And how many people know the stereotype of homeschoolers? So it's a little bit of an adjustment. There were a few kids that actually asked me if there was something wrong with me, if I might have some disability or something. And that 7th grade year, I met 2 guys, Sean O'Connell and Nate Hampson, who currently play in a local band called Aaron Mark Brown. But I met these 2 guys, and we started playing music together in Sean's garage. We were so passionate. We played together, and we just loved it. We 4 or 5 hours a day sometimes. We'd play all night. We'd write songs. And we had such a great community around us. Nampa Christian, here in Nampa. And Stu Sells, who has a local business here called Register Graphics, they do printing. He actually printed us up 500 stickers. And we went around school selling these stickers for $1 a piece. And we were able to make $500 and save up to actually have a demo CD. And we played a show for Stu's son Kyle, who was in our class, for his birthday. And we played a second show for our friend Travis's birthday. And then our 3rd show ever was a fundraiser for Nampa Christian 8th grade Memory Night, which you start fundraising for in 7th grade. And so we played a show, and our whole school rallied around us, and there were 300 people at our first actual show raising money for 8th grade Memory Night. And 5 of the people that came were the members of our favorite local rock band at the time called F4X, also from Nampa. And they were like our heroes, right? These guys were like the best band ever. And they approached us afterwards and said, can you guys go on tour with us? Can you guys start playing with us? So we actually did small tours. We did our first small tour like to Twin Falls and like other places like that. Just a mecca of music, right? Actually, funny thing about Twin Falls, at the time, all the people that listened to music in Twin Falls, they all wore all black and they had really pale skin. It was kind of like a gothic thing. And I didn't normally dress like this, but I decided to go to Abercrombie and get some like yellow shirts and stuff to go to Twin Falls. And it was really fun. Like everyone was wearing black, and the members of my band are like, "Dan, we're gonna get beat up. What are you doing?" Anyway, the band kept growing, and it was so fun here. Actually, our best show ever, we played for 5,000 people at the Idaho Fairgrounds for a show called Light in the Night, which was on Halloween night. And it was one of the best nights of my life. We had been on tour for like a month. We came back, and I hadn't seen any of my friends, and all of a sudden, all my friends are out there in the audience. There's 5,000 people, and there's almost 1,000 people right up in front. And our CD had been out at that point, but we hadn't been home since it had been out. And I see 1,000 people singing a song back to me that I wrote. And that was actually one of the best moments of my life. It was so fun. And so, this is kind of, Idaho's a big part of me, right? And from a business standpoint, in Idaho, we don't have things like they have in Seattle and San Francisco and New York. How many venture capitalists do we have in Seattle? I've never heard, in Nampa. I've never heard of too many. And even words like entrepreneur and all this kind of stuff, we kind of have this ethos of small business owner in Idaho that's really exciting. And so I grew up with that. And to me, the idea of business at the time was what I saw with my dad, what I saw with my family, and what I saw with the community here, which was basically business is about service. It's not about taking for yourself, it's about giving to others. And you want to give the absolute most value that you can to your clients, to your community, and you want to charge a fair amount, maybe even less than a fair amount, because you want to give back. So this was kind of the way I learned to do business here in Idaho. And when I went to Seattle and started my business, I didn't know any better. So even though there, they'd probably say that's the stupidest business model in the world, to me it made sense. I want to give back. And so through my band, I actually met a bunch of small business owners. And my dad at the time was getting into consulting, but he actually had a short stint in the credit card processing industry. And I was able to look over his shoulder and kind of see what he was doing and try to figure out a way that I could apply some of those same business lessons. And there were these great independent business owners. Here in Nampa, and at the time in Boise, we had Flying M, which is such a great business, right? A big part of our community is centered around this business. And they add so much. And the owner, Kevin, he's so passionate. He adds so much to our community. But if you look at how much he adds to the community and what he actually gets for it, you know, he's kind of undercompensated for the amount of value that he provides for all of us. And so it was really exciting to see that for me and be passionate about, I have an opportunity to serve somebody that's actually serving the entire community. And that's what was so inspiring for me. So I went to Seattle, initially to go to Seattle Pacific University. I was able to get a small music scholarship there, which was really fun and exciting. Started singing and started working on my business. And again, it was kind of like this dumb, in New York terms, business model, because you just do the best you can. And it was kind of funny the way it grew. We'd get to about $3,000 in profit, and then we'd hire someone, we'd go back to break even. We'd get to $3,000 in profit, and we'd hire somebody to go back to break even. I didn't know how to raise money. I didn't know how to like make some super fancy, you know, New York business model or anything like that. And so I was just growing it the way I knew how. And that was really fun and exciting until about 2008. And at the time, I think we had about 40 people total at Gravity. And we were just barely squeaking by, but we were making a little profit. And in about 2 weeks, we lost 20% of our revenue. So basically overnight. And I went from having a business that was squeaking by, and I was really happy because I was making $30,000 a year and so happy, to you know, we have 5 months before we completely go under and like all this goes away. So I rallied everyone together and I said, hey guys, if we all work together, we can actually get through this. And in about 3, 4, 5 months, which is just before we're going to run out of money, we can actually get our revenue up if we hold our expenses where they're at and get to break even and then accelerate out of that. And so that's what we did. We all worked together. I went back to working 18-hour days like I did when we were starting. And after work every day, I'd go out and talk to restaurant owners and other business owners and help them with their processing, help us grow our company. And we just barely got out of it. And then, just when we squeaked by, our largest vendor went bankrupt. And I remember getting a call at one point, and I basically found out that we were going to lose $1.5 million in the bankruptcy, which was going to completely wipe out the company. So then I took on a second job, and I became bankruptcy attorney. So I actually got appointed by the court to represent a certain class of unsecured creditors in the bankruptcy. And fortunately, I could do everything over the phone, so no one knew how old I was. And I actually had a several $100,000 legal budget that I controlled in this bankruptcy. And the creditors that were situated like us, just to give you a sense of the numbers, there was about $300 million of debt. And there was about $100 million of assets. And there was a first $100 million need to be paid to the senior secured creditors. Then the junior secured creditors need to be paid $100 million. And we didn't get anything until both of those were paid. But I actually got the senior secured creditors and the buyer of the business to say, Gravity Payments is so important to our business that we're not going to buy this business, we're not going to pay the $100 million unless we make sure they survive. And so we got through that. And then when I thought, sky's clear, we're good, one of our largest customers went bankrupt. And I walked in one day, and, you know, it was 2008, 2009, it was so tough. I walked in one day, there was a letter on my desk that basically said, Dan, we need to talk. And it was a letter from our client, which was a furniture store, to its customers. We're sorry that your furniture has been on back order. Don't worry, though, you can just charge back your credit card. You'll get a full refund. And I know that this is going to come 100% out of my pocket, out of our company's pocket. So we just barely got through that. You know, we did our best to survive there. And finally, by 2010, I was feeling confident and stable again. So I always enjoyed volunteering and working with nonprofits. And I went on a nonprofit trip, and I was in China. And I got a letter that was weird. It said, it was via email, and it said, Dan, can you look at this press release before it goes out just to make sure it's okay? It's weird. What kind of press release does someone want me to look at? And I opened up the letter, and it was a press release from the Small Business Administration saying that President Obama was going to name me the Entrepreneur of the Year for 2010, and I needed to be in Washington, D.C. to be recognized in 2 days. I was like, is this a joke? And they're like, what? We sent you a letter. And I'd been on the road, you know, for work and everything. I'm like, you mean like snail mail? You guys still do that? So I took a 30-hour trip. It was actually the very last plane that I was able to get on and still get there in time. And I was supposed to continue my nonprofit trip up to Shanghai at that point. But I diverted and I went to Washington, D.C., and I go, and as soon as I get there, they say, well, Hillary Clinton would like you to come to the Benjamin Franklin room of the State Department. She'd like to thank you for your service. So I go to the Benjamin Franklin room of the State Department. And they say, well, Secretary Clinton's not actually here right now, but she wants to Skype in to say hi and congratulate all the winners. Okay, no problem. So they put her on Skype. Hi, from Shanghai, China. And then the next morning, I went to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. They have all these crazy, like, concrete barricades that go into the ground. You go through this. And then I waited in the East Garden for a little bit, and then I waited in another room for a little bit, and maybe like 2 hours later, I'm in the Rose Garden, and actually spent about 45 minutes in a small group with the president, and then just a couple minutes one-on-one, which was really fun. And it was a very surreal experience. Part of it was that I was getting this award that I didn't understand. Part of it was that it was the President of the United States, so I see on TV and all this kind of stuff. And the other part was that I'd just done a 30-hour flight from China. So I was kind of in a weird place, and it was really fun, and I felt really privileged. And I realized that going through that adversity was a big part of kind of what led to what happened in 2010. So then, you know, the business continued, but there was always a little bit of something like, I want to do more. I want to do better. And for me, the outlet for that was always, we got to do better for our clients. And we need to lower our prices for our clients. We need to have better service. We need to have more transparency. We need to make things more simple, reduce headaches. And so we're constantly pushing the boundaries for these independent business owners like Kevin from Flying M. One thing, though, that I realized in that was the team that was doing this, they were becoming superstars. Our culture and the type of people we were attracting, they did such a phenomenal job. And I started to see them exceed me in a lot of ways. And we were setting our compensation largely based on market pay rates, right? And so we have technical call center position, financial customer service call center position, me as the CEO. And when I looked at those market rates, and we paid those, and when I looked at the value that these people were actually adding, myself included, there was just something that didn't jive. And I thought about it for a long time, and the company started to improve and perform, and I thought, what am I going to do about this? And I went on a hike one day. I was with a friend, and she was mentioning how her rent was going up by a couple $100s. This is an individual who served in the military for 11 years, did 3 tours in the Middle East, and served her country with honor, and then came back incredibly smart, working hard, working lots of hours, and had a couple years to get readjusted into the workforce, and that small rent increase just completely threw her out of